Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show. It is your Monday edition. Hope you all had a great weekend. Did something fun and enjoyable. I am still melancholy and bitter, but we'll gonna take me months to get past this one, folks. It's been a really rough ride. We will make it good, though. Anyway, let's start with our overall markets. I was not trading today. I was busy working on content and just moping around being depressed. So here is the chart for today. The thing I do like about today's session, we'll zoom in here just a little bit there. Shooting star. So we have a shooting star pattern today on the S&P 500. The thing that I guess doesn't help it is that there is no real high volume there. This typically should have really high volume if you're going to see a shooting star and really make it actionable, like there's a shorting opportunity there. Unfortunately, we'll see what happens tomorrow. So hopefully I'll be in a better mindset tomorrow and be more active on the future side of things. And I'm looking for a break down below 6,329 will be that level. Now we're still just kind of stuck right there at those highs, so holding, and maybe just traversing sideways for a little bit. But it does look at it because we just started. We haven't even gone over Bitcoin yet. I just wanted to start here because the pattern was very interesting, and as I was building out some content today and working on different things, and you watch that 5-minute chart here, and it looked great for the first half of the day, and then all of a sudden the second half just gave it all back up. You have this like just giant M formation that formed for the S&P today, giving back most of the gains. At one point, we had some pretty nice numbers posted there. I'll go from the open. At one point it's up about 0.52%, and now at the end of the day, only up 0.21%. So not that great of a return for the day, but ultimately it's a positive day, and we will take that. So I'm going to run through some of the catalyst reasons or the pieces why this might be happening. I mentioned this on Friday's show, the Trading Week wrap-up, that a lot of it has to do with the trade war parts. And if we take it, as I'm always trying to explain it here, which is if you have an event that triggers other events, it's our jobs to figure out what's that tangential cascade that happens. So if Trump it went from 15 to 20 to 25, and now they're talking 30% tariffs on EU goods. Now Germany's saying, if you want a war, you'll get it. And it's like, oh, just here we go. So it's that uncertainty, I think, that's caused a lot of this sell-off near the end of the day. Could also be the Microsoft hack, which I'll get to here in just a second. But as that heats up, the more uncertainty, the less likely Jerome Powell and his cronies will vote to lower rates. Of course, that's the talk of the town right now, is all the pressure on Jerome Powell and the FOMC to lower rates. Right now, we'll look at the current forecast for the end of this month, which is literally next week. July 30th, 97% chance of no cut. September, though, now you're talking basically a 56% chance of there being one rate cut. So, Big Gab said Germany's not good at war. Well, they're good at making things bad for a while, right? Nobody wants to have that sort of... And the good news here, it's not a physical war. This is just trade tariff war, and really no one will win that one. So hopefully they'll come to some agreement. But yeah, no one wants to see that. The more that this goes on, and the more the posturing by the European Union and other countries, and the more likely we're going to see this shift to the right, meaning less of a chance of there going to be a rate cut in September. Now, for the end of the year, markets right now are pricing in only 2 rate cuts. And I think we talked about that earlier this year. I think that did come up. I think we did talk about that. But here is where the current trade numbers stand. I highlighted in red kind of the main ones. I didn't put the European Union on here. Oh, there it is. European Union is right above Mexico. So I like this because most of it's palatable. It's not these huge tariffs. Although you start to look at the bottom end of that list, and you have, Brazil at 50%. Not so worried about, Laos and Myanmar and Cambodia. Thailand, you might get a lot of apparel from those places, and that's 36%. But it's the sheer volume of trade that we do with Canada and Mexico. Canada getting 35% tariffs, Mexico right now getting 30%. We'll see if all of this gets hammered out by the 1st of August. We've got a couple weeks left here before all of that just goes boom and gets crushed. I don't know. It could be a wild thing. I'm expecting there to be a lot of fireworks and volatility on August 1st. You might remember July 9th, I was saying I'm trading very light this week just because that trade war piece could cause a lot of problems. And that kind of went by the wayside. Now we are hearing more and more that Trump's saying, hey, it's August 1st, it's August 1st, we're going to do it. Okay, we'll see if he sticks to that number or if he kicks that can a little further down the road. I'll put a vertical line on August 1st for you that are watching the show right now. Right? We're not that far away from it. And I think that if we do get there and we start slapping on heavier tariffs and starts to get angry with people, you'll see this market sell off a little bit. And I know Big Ed's like, well, we're at all-time highs, but I know, we're at all-time highs. We are. And in the video I did for TikTok last night, I was talking about this and saying, look, I think you're going to see a breakout move to the upside on the S&P and a nice big, rally out of it. And then all of a sudden that just got erased. So some people would call that a bull trap. Ultimately, we'll have to wait and see, does this go lower, right? From where we are right now, it's still essentially stuck within that little yellow box. So no big deal. The box is between 6,329, 6,241 on the S&P. So just sitting there kind of traversing sideways. We shall see how this all ends up. All right, so that is your first big piece. When you look at the other indexes here, NASDAQ had a similar picture that it retraced and gave back some of its profits, but honestly, NASDAQ looks way better. NASDAQ, didn't really have that same consolidation, had a more convincing breakout, and here we are going higher and higher and higher. Louis says, markets are going up very cautiously. Does that mean anything? Yeah, in my opinion, it does mean a lot. If markets are going up, quote unquote, cautiously, it tells me that people are expecting something big going forward. We don't know what that is. Could it be a resolution and all of a sudden everyone's fine and happy and the markets really rip? Could it be something hostile, aggressive that causes markets to tank? We just don't know. When I was up in Vegas, I was on a panel discussion similar to the one I was on in Downey last year, and someone asked about what's the big black swan event, and I brought up the same one I brought up in Downey, which was the Taiwan semiconductor. I think also the Michael Saylor piece and these Bitcoin treasuries could be another element of black swan-ish. Most people didn't really give good, compelling answers. They really just danced around and didn't say definitively what they thought. And remember, a black swan is you just don't know what it is until it hits. I like to plan ahead. All right, what does Steve said? I spent the last month driving around the U.S. trying national parks. Anyone tell me why every single piece of clothing, apparel made and sold in China are still $50 a t-shirt? Well, because you're going to national parks, so typically that stuff's going to be a lot more expensive. I can go out there right now and get stuff made and probably pay a lot less than that, right? A much lower price point, but I think you'll see this stuff continue to move up and up and up. And that begs the question, do we see inflation rear its head going into the second half of the year? I mean, here we are in the second half, but I'll go to Forex Factor here and see what other inflation pieces I can pull up for you. Our most recent numbers for the U.S. markets were actually pretty good. I didn't really see anything bad there. Here's your CPI number. Okay, yeah, it jumped to 0.3, but that's not that bad, right? 3.3, if you annualize that, is 3.6%. That's still okay. But do we see something like back here in 2021 when prices really start to surge? Remember, you've got a lot more money being added to the debt. That's going to be printing more money. That's more money supply. There is definitely an argument to be had that tariffs and the new big, beautiful bill are going to add to inflation going forward. And of course, what does that do to the Fed? That puts the Fed in a corner of, well, hold on a second, we're not going to cut rates if inflation looks like it's coming because we need that to be raising rates to slow it down. That will be an interesting one for sure. All right. As Lori says, profit, Steve, yes. Greed, as they say. John O'Donnell taught me this one. I'm sure it's not his quote, but he said the cure for a high price is a higher price. So they will just keep on raising prices higher and higher and higher until finally the numbers sold decline. And it's simple economics and business, right? If I sell 10 items at $100, or so let's say 100 items at $10, right? I sell 100 items at $10. If I raise my price from $10 to $20 and then 30 and 40, and here I am now, my price is $100. And I'm selling 30 of those, well, I'm already making 3 times as much money. Because before I was selling 100 at $10, now I'm selling 30 at $100. So I'm making 3 times as much money. So, and you have to service a lot less customers. So I think you'll see a lot more of that, which is raise your prices up to a point where you weed out a lot of your customers and just less headache. But now you've got a higher price point item. You sell fewer of those, you make better profit margins. Can't we call it a big, stupid bill? There's certainly some segments in there, Lori, that I would call big and stupid. Yeah. I would argue that that's all political agenda stuff. It's all just, yeah. Bad, bad, bad. The national parks is a place where the U.S. can control where it's made. You would think, it's kind of sad when you go to those types of places. It should be a law that no shirt, no flag, sold or manufactured in a national park should be made in a country other than the United States. I think that would be a good law. If you're at the national park, everything on that flagpole, everything in that park should be American made. Even if it's more expensive, charge the people to use it. It should be a safe haven for American goods. All right, let's go back to our markets. I was on the NASDAQ. Let me run through our top 10 here. If you go to the 10-year yield, pretty significant slide over the past 4 days on that 10-year yield. We were just kissing 5.5%, and all of a sudden we're at 4.38. So not a gigantic slide, but it has been pretty substantial. I mean, dropping 12 basis points in a period of 4 days is significant, but not enough to really have a big impact on the markets yet. Again, I'm waiting for this thing to just kind of break out one way or the other and start a nice trend. It's really just been choppy since April, so nothing big there. Your dollar index continues its slide. We talked about that hesitation, the rally back up. Didn't quite make it up into supply on that dollar index, but that trend is your friend until the bend at the end. And my belief is that we'll be back down right around that 96.5 mark probably by next few weeks. And if that's the case, then the equity markets will probably be back through all-time highs and pushing higher and higher and higher. Of course, remember that August 1st deadline is pretty important and right there looming. If you look at crude oil on the day, slightly down. I had I can't remember when we said this one. I think it was this day here when I sold these puts on it. I said oil would be higher, but I didn't put a date when I said this, because higher than what? So unfortunately, I don't know what this benchmark or goalpost is that I have on your screen. But yeah, oil down 0.15% today. Really just feeling very weak over the past couple of sessions. No real volume to push it up, no real moves being pushed up, even though you had decent volume on crude oil. So that would lead me to believe this is going to continue to drift, and we'll probably come back in that little yellow box I've got drawn on your screen there between 65.46 and 64.60. All right. Atticus was asking about Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin on the day, down 0.63%. Not a great day. It started off really good. We were looking at some really nice numbers early on and then just started to give it back. I think for me, the important number that I'll put on your screen is that low price we hit just a couple of weeks ago, which is right about 15,635. Because that would lead to that thing dropping and filling the gap and going a bit lower. As of today, there were new buyers for Bitcoin. And I put this on here because one of the big arguments that I have for why crypto markets are going to be moving higher and higher and higher is not just adoption and regulation, which we've seen, but also the proliferation of treasuries. We've seen a lot of Bitcoin treasuries out there. And of course, if you're in the crypto program, I've been saying quite a bit that if you want to know where the money's going in crypto, like where policy is going to change, how is Trump or anybody on the executive branch, how are they positioning themselves? Well, you got to look at what they're buying. So I tell everyone you should definitely go and look at World Liberty Financial, and you should look at DJT. So DJT recently made an announcement. Who knows exactly when that transaction was made, but they purchased $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. So now DJT is getting in on the action. And remember, DJT is building ETFs that they are going to look to sell. So that's probably part of the reason they're buying it is for those holdings. And they have, I forget the name of the funds. I've showed them to you in the past. I just can't remember them right now. They have two different crypto projects, I believe. I think one was the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Fund, which in theory would be the ones that President Trump would put into the strategic reserve. And Bitcoin obviously is the number one there. Also, I believe there was another up-and-coming Discovery Fund, which is all American-based cryptocurrency projects, and that might be of interest to you for those who are looking at building out your portfolio a little more broadly. So that was a nice jump today, 3.11%, up another almost 1% in the after-hour session. But they're doing the same thing that Michael Saylor is doing. And I think, is it 21? There's a stock. Let me do a search here. 1 second. It's called 21 Coins. I think. Let's go 21. Oh, Marlon, this is annoying as heck. 21. It's not out there yet. I think it's called 21 Coins, which is another MicroStrategy. type of product. But there's more and more of these things popping up. MicroStrategy, obviously the big dog. But if more keep doing what DJT is doing, then the likelihood of Bitcoin continuing to move higher is significant. Now, the big question I have, which I've had many times, is where is DJT keeping this $2 billion? Is it on Coinbase? Is it on Fidelity? Is it self-custody? Can we see the address? So 21 Coins, which is run by a guy named Jack Mahler, a young kid who's very, 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 very bullish on the entire crypto world and Bitcoin in particular. He got billions of dollars of investors and they're buying Bitcoin, but they're actually showing you the address. They're like, here is our address. We control it. That's ours. MicroStrategy's not doing that. DJT's not doing that. All these other treasuries are not doing that. If that happens, I think we'd see much higher moves up in Bitcoin. The big question is, where is it held, right? You guys have heard me talk about the fractional reserve lending aspect of Bitcoin on exchanges, and that has me very nervous that could be a black swan event coming down the road. Good to see you, George. Schwab is going to allow crypto trading next year. Yep, that's another big ad. The question now, George, is can those now be put in directly into IRAs? So Fidelity has certain provisions, things you can't do in your IRA. You can use IBIT, but not actual Bitcoin. Hopefully we'll see them now let those traditional instruments like ETFs, as well as spot markets like actually Bitcoin outright, be held in retirement accounts. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think when you have the legislation going through that shows a much more openness from the regulator side, then these banks which have been apprehensive. Remember, a big bank, particularly anything that's connected to the Federal Reserve, was not really allowed to do anything with crypto. We saw banks get pushed out. We saw Silvergate, Silicon Valley, Signature. Those banks were doing work with crypto, and lo and behold, they crashed. So I think that is a big factor going forward. Is where the openness of banks to now participate in this arena because they've been blacklisted for a while and too worried about what the Fed might do. Now the Fed's like, yeah, custody crypto. So by the end of this year, we should see a bunch more. JBG says, why do you care where people keep their Bitcoin? Is it to verify their holdings? Multiple reasons here. The first reason is, yes, to verify holdings. So I can go look there. Big Eb. See, he got me started. Big Eb will tell you it's called fractional reserve lending. So if you keep your money in a bank, they lend it out over and over and over again. Bitcoin is not all on chain. All the actual real Bitcoin is on chain, Mick. So if you have a ledger and you have a private key, that's on chain. Coinbase can sit there and say, oh, I have a customer who wants to buy some Bitcoin. Sure, I'll ledger entry. I'll put a ledger entry that says this customer now has one Bitcoin, but they haven't actually gone to the market to buy it. Just like your bank lends you $10,000. The bank didn't earn that $10,000. They just took it from someone else's account and put it in yours. And the reason fractional reserve banking works for the banks is because we don't get runs on the bank. If there's a run on the bank, not 10 or 15 customers, but let's say thousands of customers all at once want their money, banks are screwed. I think it's the same thing for exchanges. That's why you want to pull your crypto off the exchange. Put it into a storage where you can control the private keys. Fidelity apparently does their own self-custody, but I have not seen any real proof of that. So the actual Bitcoin is on chain, but it's my assertion that if let's say there's only 21 million Bitcoin in existence, if you're to tabulate all the Bitcoin that are quote unquote in people's accounts on Coinbase, Kraken, Fidelity, Binance, wherever, you're probably looking much higher than that. You're probably at 40, 50, 60 million Bitcoin in circulation. But the real ones are, yes, on the blockchain. They're ledger entry, they're paper entry, just like the Fed printing $17 trillion worth of money out of thin air. I've not heard of time chain index. Nope. So he says, if all the new token coins are required to purchase treasuries, you mean stable coins, wouldn't this ultimately drive 5, 10, and 30-year bonds up? Good time to get long TLT for the long haul? I don't think that would be the case. Remember, these are required, these stable coins will be required to buy 93-day maturities or less, okay? When you have that much demand for a product, the issuer of that treasury is going to offer a lower yield. It will actually cause the price of those yields to drop, which will flatten out that yield curve and make it look more regular. But does it have a direct impact on the 5, the 10, the 30 year? I don't think so. What's going to impact the 30 year is the government saying we need to raise, debt. We need to pay off the debt that we've incurred. So let's start issuing more and more. The more bonds that the government issues and let's say demand stays the same for, let's say, the 10-year, and more bonds are issued, the yields are going to rise. So hopefully we'll see demand increase for those, but I don't know if I wouldn't say it necessarily is going to impact with stable coins the yield for the longer term maturities, just the shorter term stuff. It's going to create a tremendous amount of buyers there. What else did I have for today? Let's talk real quick about this Microsoft hack. I thought that was kind of interesting. Time claims to have proof of reserves or strategy and the public address. So I've heard it's the Chainalysis also has that too. That's the one I use. So time chain is probably the same as the Chainalysis. It's just a data analytics. I've heard that Chainalysis has some of his address as well. Not all of it, but some addresses. And maybe those addresses aren't Fidelity. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how it's all being held. But yes, you can see some addresses, but not the 500,000 Bitcoin that is being claimed. All right, so we were working our way up the list here. Obviously, Russell 2000, still the laggard, just hesitating over the past 2 weeks, up down 0.39 today. S&P we already did, NASDAQ we already did, and our big leader here, as we had a little bit of a risk-off moment there near the end, was gold. 1.43% rise for gold, yet we're still stuck in that giant yellow box, so nothing big there. All right, let me go and look at this bad boy, little Microsoft hack. So Microsoft, in a little bit of trouble. Let me see, FT. The chart looks absolutely amazing. Didn't really do much to it today from a damage perspective, but their SharePoint software was hacked, which allowed hackers to get in and exploit a lot of international data. And it sounded pretty extreme. It really sounded very, very extreme with regards to what happened with Microsoft and its threat. Now, Microsoft issued a patch, there's a fix, and they say it's okay, but they're still trying to figure out the extent of the hack and information that was stolen. I actually was kind of expecting Microsoft to take a bigger hit. When you're that big and you have that sort of attack that's that worldwide, yeah, you should see a bigger downside move here. So I was kind of hoping Microsoft would have sold off so I could have bought some at a lower price, but we really got nothing out of Microsoft today. Mick says time chain has 100% of the addresses. Well, yeah, every blockchain explorer has 100% of the addresses. It's how they aggregate the data and collect it all. Yeah, exactly, Oliver. It didn't affect them at all. All right, let me go through real quick just some of the trades I'm in. I updated this list here just so you guys could see it. Again, don't have anything interesting here. I did in one of my accounts. Some IBIT today, which I'm doing just a wheel strategy. But these are the positions I'm currently in. Not a lot. I've got the United Health Group 275 puts. I've got that MicroStrategy 107. Again, that was 1% yield for a week. The United Health Group as well. And then I have the MicroStrategy. That's the 410 put expire. And all these are expiring this Friday. So I have a little bit of dry powder here. I really didn't go overboard with it, but collected 525 for that MicroStrategy 410. And I'm feeling pretty comfortable with that. Although you just never know what's going to hit over the next, MSTR. You never know what's going to hit any given day with MicroStrategy. Just like we had on Friday, that big sell-off, it could happen again very, very quickly. So hopefully we'll stay above that 410 mark. If not, that's pretty much all I have. So there we go. Man, 24-minute show. 24 minutes. Crazy. What questions do you guys have for me? I'll extend it on here, but as you guys know, I'm just not all there. I'm not the same mood, person, attitude, energy that I normally am, and I'm hoping to pull myself up and be much more energetic for you guys over the next couple weeks. But what things you guys want to discuss today? I'll go back through here and look at some of the questions that came through. I got all kinds of good stuff coming through. So let's talk. Big Eb here talked about Solana. I'm liking Solana, and of course, finally, ETH is moving up. Look, they're both good. Solana's making some changes to their network, which should allow them to do some pretty tremendous things. They're doubling their block size. They're turning their finality from 400 milliseconds into 100 milliseconds, which is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive speed to have it like 1/10 of 1 second, and your transactions through. I'll be honest, when you have something that settles that fast, I have to ask, how does that happen? Right? Because if you're truly decentralized as a blockchain and you've got servers all over the world, how you can't even communicate with another server on the other side of the world in 0.1 milliseconds. I can look at my latency here. Hold on. This is just to communicate with my, real quick, let me do a speed test. Just want to do a speed test on this computer to see how fast I am, and how much latency I have. This is just for my computer to go up to Los Angeles. I'll tell you the milliseconds. So it takes me 4 milliseconds. Okay, so that's 100 milliseconds. I guess to send, just to ping the server, it takes 4 milliseconds from here. They're saying 100 milliseconds, you have finality. That is recorded, verified, and on the blockchain. That's incredible speed. My concern is, how does that happen? How can you have speed that quickly without making mistakes? Apparently they're doing it. Now remember, Solana has had a lot of issues in the past because of centralization, and we shall see how it moves going forward. But I'm with you, Big Eb. I am a big fan of Solana. I'm a big fan of Ethereum as well. Oh, that open. Yeah, let's look at that one real quick. OPEN. Open Door Technologies, just ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole, but just a couple weeks ago, this thing was at 50 cents. Hit an intraday high today of call it $5. I'm rounding up a little bit. Yeah, pretty wild. Pretty wild, but not for me. I'm out. XYZ, huh? Steve says, was XYZ stock affected by the Genius Act that sold covered calls on them on this morning after the bump on Friday? I don't know. I would imagine that Block, the reason that, or part of the reason why they would have this sort of jump would be when you have stable coins introduced, right? And they're already introduced, but when we see a proliferation of them, I think it's saying whoever's a payment aggregator and can now be using all of these stable coins, whether it's Microsoft's or Amazon's or Google's stablecoin, if you can now be a payment processor of all of those different ones, I think that gives you a big advantage. And I think that might be where Block comes in, or XYZ. I don't know if that's directly, but it would certainly make sense to me as someone who's going to be a payment system, that it opens up a lot more doors, a lot more business, right? It's not just dollars anymore. It's every company's proprietary piece. And Block has obviously been very interested in crypto and digital assets as a company. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Strategy announced another preferred stock. Yeah, Mick, I can't keep up with it. With Misty and Strike and STRC, there's just so many different ones. I didn't know, Oliver, if Block was out of the S&P. I did not see that. Maybe if you look at the news and see, but was it out of the S&P today? Yep. Morning after it was under the S&P 500 this week. Yeah, so you're right, Oliver. Got me. I did not know that. The inclusion follows Chevron's completed acquisition of Hess, so they basically took Hess out and they need to bring somebody in. I'm sure this is going to be upsetting to a lot of people, because so many people were thinking that MicroStrategy or strategy was going to get added in. So typically when there's these mergers, they've got a hole they need to fill. In that case, it looks like Block got added in. Honestly, I think that's a smart move. If I was the S&P board, I would much rather add in Block than MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is too risky at this moment. Block is a mature business that is all in digital payments, and that's something that's very relevant for today. So, there you go. What else? What do you guys want? We're 30-minute show. Friday was the shortest show. I think it might be getting shorter and shorter and shorter. All right. Well, let me while I wait for you guys to send in questions, let's go into your economic calendar, because today was just nothing really special on the calendar front. Tomorrow we start to get some better data, even though it's not that great. You just have Powell speaking, so he's going to be doing a presentation for it's the Integrated Review of the Capital Framework for Large Banks Conference. Say that one multiple times. Brutal. By the federal. So that's Jerome Powell. He's doing the opening remarks, so he's not going to say anything crazy here. This isn't like it's going to be, it's not going to be anything that significant, I don't think. Maybe if he did some Q&A off the cuff, that would be decent, but I don't really see that being impactful tomorrow. So what will be impactful? Let's go back to our earnings calendar and show you that one here real quick. You see we have SAP, Coca-Cola, Philip Morris, and then we go into defense. You've got RTX, or the old Raytheon. You've got Lockheed Martin, Intuitive Surgical if you're going AI. So we start to see some Northrop Grumman as well. So we'll call tomorrow Defense Day. What was that? What the hell is that? What is what? What are you talking about there, Steve? Where did I go? Anyway, yeah, those are some fairly decent names. And we got bigger names, obviously, going into later this week, but we'll talk about those as we progress. So, Liz, there's not going to be much more recording. I'm going to wrap this up in just a couple minutes. I'm just not there today, What do you think of the new stock for Solana SOLZ? I'm not a big fan of these SOLZ. Solana ETF. I have not looked at this. So, Mike, I'll have to go and look at this from the perspective and line it up with Solana, because one thing that bugs me about, and I don't even know if this is new, this has been around a while, I'm not a big fan of ETFs on something, because you see it's trading at $21.80. Well, what is that, right? This should be like 1/10 or 1/100th of the price of Solana. But if we put the chart on there, does it look good? We'll go crypto, add Solana, USD from Coinbase. They're fairly close. Yeah, they look like they're fairly lockstep. So there's not a lot of degradation on this one. It does feel a little off, but really not that bad. So yeah, I would look at the fee structure on that one, Mike, but great, you got Solana ETFs. And there's going to be more, right? You're going to see a whole litany of different ETFs here soon as the regulators start to add a little more clarity with the Clarity Act. How was the George concert? George Thorogood and the Destroyers. Thank you for that one. Yeah. It was good. They're old, old rockers. So Foghat opened for George Thorogood at the fair. And I must say, floored by the drummer for Foghat. Foghat, Slow Ride, Take It Easy. That's a great song. Their drummer was 79 years old. And if I saw him walking down the street, I'd say, man, this dude looks bad. Not in good shape. That guy was just shredding. Absolutely crushing it at 79 years old. I was very impressed with that. So that Foghat George Thorogood concert was it was great. $17 a ticket, not that big of a deal. Beautiful night. So yeah, it was fun. I'm going to more concerts this weekend. I have Fits in the Tantrums on Friday, and then I have there's so many. There's Dispatch, G-Love and the Special Sauce, John Butler Trio, and Donovan Frankenreiter are playing on Saturday. So there we go. Yeah, mix this. It's one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer. One bourbon, one scotch, and one beer. His voice was off. The lyrics on one bourbon, one scotch, and one beer, he couldn't even quite get that right. It was pretty funny how he messed it up. Okay, that's going to do it for me. So at a dive bar in Delaware, man, that'd be the good old days. The good old days. Yes, Margaret, it was outdoors. It was good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Fitz. We'll see how that one goes. Again. Cool. Well, if you guys have anything you want to discuss on tomorrow's show, do me a favor, email me. I know that these shows are getting shorter and shorter, but I said I'm just not there, not in the right space. But hopefully time will heal and I will get back to my normal self and have a zest for life again, as opposed to where I'm at now. So if you guys need anything, let me know. Email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com if there's something you want to discuss. I might bring on a couple guests that I met at the conference in Las Vegas, but I need to get a bunch of stuff going on here. So cool. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you need anything, let me know. Thinking of moving to Phoenix area? We'll see. I right now I could pretty much go anywhere that I'd like to go. So we'll see. All right, guys. Thanks. See you tomorrow.